I fear not the dark itself, but what may lurk within it. Welcome to Lurk, bringing you creepy, strange, and bone-chilling stories, with your host, Jamie Jackson.
Hey lurkers, welcome to this week's episode. Yes, I understand that this week's episode is technically the episode for like 2 or 3 weeks ago. And yes, there is another episode that I should have already released. And yes, there's another episode that needs to be released for Sunday. So there will be 3 episodes that are coming out here, one after the other, as quickly as I can get them recorded and edited. And I apologize for that, but quite honestly, per usual, my world is crazy. For this episode, we are heading to the state of Hawaii, which we have not gone to yet. Well, personally, I have not gone to physically or story-wise. Specifically, we're heading to the island of Oʻahu, to an area called Waipahu, located in the city and county of Honolulu. Waipahu is a former sugarcane plantation town. The name Waipahu is the name of an artesian spring, and the town was once considered to be the capital of Oʻahu. Royalty in the Kingdom of Hawaii would often gather and enjoy the fresh water from the local spring. In 1897, the Oʻahu Sugar Company was incorporated, and a sugar mill was located in Waipahu. The expansion of Hawaii sugar plantations happened because of the increased demand. The 1848 California Gold Rush and the Civil War in 1861 both contributed to the demand. The 1875 Reciprocity Treaty granted Hawaii the right to export sugar duty-free to the United States. Hawaii was still independent at this time and had not yet been annexed to the U.S. Side note, Hawaii became a state on August 21st of 1959. The sugar mill had 943 workers that included 44 Hawaiians, 10 of which were miners, 57 Portuguese, 443 Japanese, and 399 Chinese. Other nationalities that were brought in to work at the sugar mill were Filipinos, Koreans, Spanish, and Puerto Ricans. Very few workers were actually Hawaiian. Field laborers received an average monthly wage of $12.50. The Filipinos were paid less because they were the cheapest to import. They received just $10 a month. Chinese workers were paid $15 a month. Today, the sugar mill is known as the Waipahu Plantation Village and is an outdoor museum that was developed to foster a better understanding of Hawaii society as it evolved in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. The museum tells the story about Hawaii's immigrant plantation laborers and the differing cultural values and traditions that form the basis of Hawaii's multi-ethnic society. The outdoor museum is made up of 50 acres and has 25 structures with a collection of items that includes thousands of donated artifacts, household goods, agricultural tools, personal belongings, and historical photos. The idea for the museum came about because retired sugar mill workers were concerned that the plantation camps and the story they told would disappear from record. The plantation village opened in September of 1992 with a celebration that hosted more than 6,000 people. Development of the village involved construction of a climate-controlled new museum building, restoration of historic structures on site, construction of additional replica buildings, and relocation of a threatened historic structure. The museum boasts a large number of donated objects from Hawaii's plantation period, and the museum contains the largest collection of plantation-era artifacts in Hawaii. The first major immigrant group imported to work on Hawaii's plantation were the Chinese, and that started in 1852. The Chinese site is interpreted with the restoration of one existing building on the site, as well as the rebuilding of a structure where only the foundation remained. The original complex provided group housing and eating facilities for single men, as well as meeting and worship space. Within the Chinese area of the plantation village is the Chinese cookhouse that was restored on its original site from 1909. The kitchen was used to prepare communal meals for the single male residents. The cookhouse is the oldest remaining wooden structure in Waipahu and is one of the few remaining intact Chinese cookhouses in Hawaii. The large woks are still in the structure. The building is listed on the state and national registers of historic places. The Spanish camp is the next area within the village and is made up of entirely reconstructed buildings. Though not related through customs or language, the Portuguese and the Puerto Ricans were housed together in Spanish camp because they were the only imported labor that was not Oriental. The Portuguese immigration started in 1877 and included many families. The plantation homes used for this group were small and simple, consisting of 2 rooms used for living and sleeping. The whitewashed Portuguese house in the village is a reconstruction. Approximately 5,000 Puerto Ricans were brought to the islands as laborers for the sugar plantations in 1900 and 1901. A devastating hurricane in 1899 that hit Puerto Rico was one of the factors in inducing them to travel to Hawaii. The Puerto Rican house consists of 2 rooms and a long porch, which was typical quarters for the turn of the century. The largest ethnic group in Hawaii today is the Japanese. They were also the largest group to immigrate to work on the plantations. The first group of Japanese workers arrived in Hawaii in 1868. Large groups started arriving in the 1880s due to an economic crisis in Japan. Over 200,000 Japanese migrated to Hawaii between 1884 and 1924. Several buildings in the plantation village present the history of the Japanese workers. Early Japanese families were housed in converted dormitory-like accommodations. Often crowded and lacking privacy, the housing proved to be inadequate for family life. Housing became more standardized after a worker strike in 1909. The first standardized building was a duplex with attached kitchen. The need for more family-oriented communities marked the transition from camp to village. From 1906 to 1946, the sugar planters recruited immigrants from the Philippines heavily. The Filipino house is an example of the larger homes built for families in the pre-war era. It had indoor bathing facilities and kitchens. The Filipino house at the village is a reconstruction. So the plantation village shares the point in history when sugar was king. The large melting pot of immigrants brought in to work created the pidgin language that is famous to Hawaii. Even children worked at the plantation. Children as young as 3 would be tasked with gathering water. Women shucked the sugar and the men carried pounds of bushels from one end of the plantation to the other. On December 7, 1941, a date that would live in infamy, Pearl Harbor was attacked. During the attack, Imperial Japanese Navy planes fired at the sugar mill and killed a civilian and injured 7 others. The Oʻahu Sugar Company shut down operations in 1995. And now, today, Waipahu is one of Hawaii's most dangerous cities. And you might be wondering why I covered all of that history, but like I have said before, and if you're new and you haven't heard it, the history is oftentimes why someplace is haunted. The history is important. Ghost hunting, in my opinion, can't really exist without the history. That's why. And I like history, and I want to give you as much information as possible. So that's why you have to sit through a history lesson in every episode. So of the 25 plantation houses that are located in the village, about half of them are haunted. The executive director, Higa, never believed in the paranormal until he was forced to deal with the numerous reports from visitors and tour guides. They ended up making a rule that no one was allowed to work alone because of the numerous accounts of paranormal activity. Everyone needs to work in pairs as a safety precaution. The Portuguese family house is haunted by the spirit of a young girl. The girl is dressed in white and no one knows her name, but they all say that she's playful. She most often appears to children or mothers during the day. She often appears when school groups are touring the plantation. No one really realized it at first until students started asking who the girl was. One of the tour guides has witnessed visiting students talking to people who aren't actually there. One day, one of the docents was in the Portuguese house when she felt something touching her hair and shoulders. Then her hair was flipped over her face. She left the house and told Director Higa that she was never setting foot in the house again. So Higa contacted a minister. The minister visited the Portuguese house 3 times. He said that he felt a very heavy male presence the first time that he visited. The third time, he felt the same male presence in the front bedroom, which was a different location than when he was there the first time. He then used holy water to bless every window and door in the house to purify it. As far as the ghost of the young girl, the minister said that she was a good spirit who felt close to the area. She was protecting the house. He said that the girl was very interested in the docent because the girl had never had a mother in her life and wanted one in death. The girl's mother abandoned her as a newborn, and the girl's father was forced to raise her on his own. While at the plantation, he would tie his daughter to a table or chair when he went to work at the plantation fields. One day there was a fire. The camp workers rushed back to the village to help put it out. They were deathly afraid the fire would spread when one other wooden house caught fire. The house was the one where the girl was tied up to the table, and her father realized the fire could be a way to rid himself of his problem. So he let her die. Now the ghost of the girl seeks out other children or women that seem motherly, or who are mothers because she longs to be lovingly mothered. The plantation village hosts a haunted attraction each year, and during that time it's not just the fabricated haunts that are running around. One of the employees of the haunted attraction was tasked with being in the Portuguese house. While she was there, she felt tugging at the keys on her jeans. Another haunted house actor in the Portuguese house reported strange bruises on her legs that looked like somebody or something had grabbed her. There were other former actors who reported the same thing. And while you might assume that the bruises on the legs of the actors were more of a malicious entity, I had the thought that perhaps it was the spirit of the little girl not wanting those people to leave. My youngest grandson tends to grab my leg and sit on my foot and hang on while you try to walk away because he doesn't want you to leave the house or just to be a butt. Either way, it could explain why bruises showed up on their legs. I would rather believe that part than to believe like there's some demon entity hanging onto my leg. But it's very sad to think of a little girl who didn't have a mother, who wasn't treated kindly, who's left here in purgatory, so to speak, in limbo, trying to find somebody to be her mother. A family of 3 was touring the village one day, and their son was about 11 or 12 years old. And during the tour, he asked who the girl was standing behind the tour guide in the Portuguese house. No one saw the girl except the boy. Not long after he witnessed the girl, they all witnessed the doors closing by themselves. In the Okinawa house, employees have felt as though they were being choked and they couldn't breathe. One employee said it felt like heavy pressure on his neck and he couldn't breathe. Not only did he experience it at the village, but he also felt as though he was being choked once he got home. It seems the entity had followed him there. People have reported the sounds of banging pots and pans in the Japanese house as well. During a work break, a couple of employees were standing together, and one said, "Why is that man standing in front of us?" And the other employee said, "What man?" Because there was no one there. In the Filipino house, doors unlock on their own, and there's an apparition of a woman in 1930s clothing that is seen. There's also a lady in white, because every good haunting story needs a lady in white. She vanishes whenever she is approached. Inside the Puerto Rican house, there's a Japanese doll in a case. Every now and then, the doll will suddenly appear outside of the case, though no one has been near it. Nearly 40 actors have quit the haunted house attraction, and the turnover rate for security guards is high. Shadow figures have also been seen moving between the buildings, mostly near the old bunkhouses. Objects move on their own, doors slam shut, and lights flicker. Some have reported hearing disembodied voices that sound as though they're speaking in different languages. Curtains move in the windows, and you can hear the sound of doors locking and unlocking, and items being dragged. The show Ghost Hunters filmed an episode at the plantation house, and while they seemingly debunked a couple of the phenomena, like the curtains moving, which was attributed to large moths in the windows, they did record some interesting EVP. The plantation house isn't the only haunted location on Oʻahu that we're going to cover. Otherwise, this would be a pretty short episode. The Haunted Kasha House of Kaimuki, located at 8th and Harding in Honolulu, is said to be the most haunted location on the island. The literal translation of the Japanese word kasha is fire cart. The kasha is a creature that frequented populated areas where it ate fresh human corpses. These creatures live amongst humans under the guise of a common house cat or stray. It is a bipedal creature taller than most people and accompanied by the flames of hell. In the evening, they return to hell and also on rainy or stormy days. Only during funerals does its true form become revealed, and as a result, it often will snatch corpses and take them to hell as punishment. The kasha will also animate a corpse, treating it like a puppet, and then it usually eats it. Apparently, their mothers never told them not to play with their food. When this cat like demon eats a body, it is able to take the person's spirit to hell. It apparently has an insatiable hunger for blood and corpses. They aren't required to stay at one location and are able to come and go as they please, and they're sometimes known to follow the victims. A kasha is what is allegedly behind the paranormal activity at the Kaimuki house. But why is Akasha drawn to this particular house? There's a story that a father killed his whole family when they lived in that house. The bodies of his wife and son were found, but the body of his daughter was never found. There are supposedly 2 tombstones in the backyard. On August 13th, 1942, neighbors of the house called the police because of screaming coming from the house. Police Sergeant Mosley K. Cummins and Patrolman Robert Ansteth responded to the call, and in the house they witnessed the kids being slapped by unseen forces and being levitated. According to an article from the Honolulu Star Bulletin, they found a Hawaiian boy age 10 and his 2 sisters, age 18 and 20, shrieking on the couch. The mother, besides shrieking, was waving tea leaves and sprinkling Hawaiian salt to ward off ghosts. At 10 p.m., she said her son had detected an odor of ghosts. Angry at being found out, the spirits first attacked him, then began repeated attempts to strangle his sisters. The mother said, "My husband who left me is to blame." After a 1.5-hour struggle, police and family yielded the home to Kahuna and retreated at 3 a.m. to the mother's sister's home. As they left, the sleepless neighbors gave thanks, and the mother turned to Sergeant Cummings. "Look, you have ghost pimples too." Then, on October 31st, 1972, there was another newspaper article. The article reads as follows. Police officer in a patrol car in Kaimuki got a late-night call from 3 girls sharing a house which the neighborhood considered haunted. The girls heard strange noises of someone moving around and talking, and one of the girls said she felt a hand on her arm. They decided to spend the night in Papacolia with the mother of one of the girls and wanted the policeman to follow them there. The girls got into their car, the officer got into his, and they drove down Wailea Avenue. Suddenly, the girl driving pulled her car over into the Oasis Cafe parking lot. The policeman later wrote in his report that the girl in the middle of the front seat was fighting off someone who could not be seen, but was strangling her. The officer jumped out of his car and reached into the girl's car to help. In retelling the story, the officer said, "A big, strong, calloused hand that could not possibly belong to a teenage girl grabbed my arm and twisted it. I radioed for assistance." The answering officer was prepared for a parking lot fight, but not for a ghost. "There's a ghost in that car," he told me, and was white as a sheet. The girls were hysterical. I told the girl who had been choked to get into the police car and the others to follow us to Papacolia. As soon as she got into the car, the motor died. It wouldn't start again. We put her back into the girl's car. The other officer tried the motor and it immediately started. The two cars drove about 5 yards and suddenly the door of the girl's car flew open and the same girl fell out on the road. Again, she was tearing at her throat as if someone was choking her. Together, the two policemen were not strong enough to pull her hands away. The Hawaiian police sergeant ran into the Oasis Cafe and came out with a handful of Hawaiian salt and a glass of water, which he sprayed on everybody. Calm was immediately restored. He said, "It was something my grandmother told me. I never tried it before. It sends the ghosts away." People continued to live in the house, but no one lasted more than a few months. One tenant said they woke up at exactly 4:33 a.m. and the room would be ice cold. They felt in their gut that something was very wrong. Every smoke alarm would beep once in unison. The AC in the room was set to 72 degrees, and it shuts off on its own. But on those particular mornings, the room would be close to 60 degrees. The air conditioner unit was not powerful enough to make the room that cold. The tenant had a cold feeling in his chest and his veins filled with ice water, like the life force was being drained. His chest was tight and he struggled to breathe. Then there was the feeling like when somebody is watching you. The room just felt sinister. He would flee into the living room and all would be okay. There was another story associated with the house that there was a lesbian couple who lived there. One of the women had an affair with a man. He discovered that she was a lesbian and killed her, her girlfriend, and then himself in the house. Many say that the original house was torn down in 2016 and a contemporary style home was built on the site. But we all know that sometimes it's the land that holds the haunting and not necessarily the house. That's going to do it for this episode of Lurk. Remember, you can find us wherever you listen to podcasts, like on Spotify and iHeartRadio. You can also find episodes on the website at lurkpodcast.com. And on the website, you'll find our new blog and a place to sign up for our monthly newsletter. I've also added a news section for guest co-hosts and other members of the Lurk podcast team. If you like what you hear, tell everybody you know and even people you don't know. My husband wore a Lurk shirt to Lowe's the other day, and he shared our information with the guy selling leaf filters for rain gutters. And you can always give us a 5-star review if you have a moment to do that. And of course, until next time, keep lurking.